Thanks for tuning in, guys. It's the Pest and Lawn Ginja, and this is my Tenacity lawn project. So it's kind of funny, everybody keeps asking me, Tenacity, does it work? What does it do? Will it work on this and that and this and that? I don't know, so let's go try it out.
All right, guys, it's time. You guys asked for it, and here I am. Boom. Now, apparently this little bottle packs a punch, but I don't like to spray anything I don't know about, so here's what I found out. Now, this teeny tiny 8-ounce bottle was kind of expensive. You can get it on Amazon for about $65. At my local hardware store, I ended up spending about $89 after tax. Magical question of the day is, what is it? And for those of you at home, it's always best to read the label, dive into what you're gonna be spraying, know what you're doing. It makes it a lot easier, but I'm gonna try to make it a little bit easier on you. Now, Tenacity is classified as a group 27 herbicide, which basically just means it's an inhibitor. Now, the point of the inhibitor is to get rid of chlorophyll and disallow photosynthesis from happening, which gives the plant all of its energy. Now, if you take those down, everything else goes away. So the common problem with Tenacity is bleaching. Now, that effect is normal and it's part of the process. Even on the Syngenta commercial, it'll tell you that your common grasses such as tall fescue and Kentucky bluegrass, centipede grass are subject to bleaching, because that's how the product works. Now, unfortunately for us, it just causes tip burn in the cool season grasses that we want. To be honest with you, I'm kind of fascinated at how all this comes about. Well, it turns out in 1927, somebody was walking by a bush in Australia and New Zealand and discovered that plants weren't growing underneath it. So he thought to himself, I wonder how I can figure this one out. So these people spent the next like 40 years dissecting the plant and finally figured out that one of the components of the plant was an herbicide. It's kind of like nicotine. They figured out imidacloprid was a pesticide. It's just fascinating to me. But who walks by a bush and just notices the plants underneath it aren't growing and goes, I'm gonna go figure that one out. Oh my gosh, guys, who are these people that are geniuses? These guys find a plant in the middle of Australia and New Zealand. They wake up one day and they go, looks like that carotenoid is not working. Chlorophyll's gone, plant's dying. Bet we can mass produce that one. So then some scientist in 2001 from Syngenta comes through and says, hey, I bet you we can manipulate these molecules and make it so it doesn't kill bluegrass or tall fescue. Wouldn't that be cool? All right, hold your hats on and let's talk about why we should use Tenacity. Well, it acts as a pre and a post-emerging herbicide. So just to dumb it down a little bit, your post-emergents are used for weeds that are annual weeds or biennial weeds that have already popped up to say hello. You spray the plant, it takes it down, it kills the root, kills everything. Now your pre-emergents, what they do is they disrupt weed seed germination. They don't prevent weed seed germination. So as that seed is popping up and germinating, this chemical is going to disrupt the chlorophyll and the photosynthesis, so the plant will die. Now, magically enough, it's gonna leave your seeds of bluegrass and tall fescue and ryegrass alone, and species of St. Augustine and centipede grass, which is pretty dang cool because most of those are desirable grasses. Now, the dysfunction that most of us have when we overseed is you overseed and you start watering, and all that grass seed gets pushed out from weeds that germinate faster, and they shove their, they basically shove their leaves out, and it chokes out the life of the other plants because they can't get to light and they can't photosynthesize. It was kind of funny. It lists up to 46 different weeds that'll be affected. Common dandelion, purslane, and then there's this little section of the label that says it'll get rid of many different monocot and dicot weeds. Well, what does that mean? And that's another thing I want to test out today is how many will it get rid of? All right, guys, enough of the chitter chatter. Let's get out of here and see what we can do with this Tenacity.
Let's go ahead and walk through this lawn, guys. As you can see, I tried to pick the shiniest turd on the planet. It's got a little bit of everything in it. We've got spurge, we've got chickweed, we've got goosegrass, morning glory, everything that you guys have asked for in one lawn. I've got common dandelion here. I've got, what else do we have? Oh, there's a little bit of tall fescue, a little bit of crabgrass, and coming over here, we've got some foxtail. Let's see. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And this is just the front yard, guys. We go around the backyard. Beautiful property, might I add. Views are glorious. Everything, the house is gorgeous. Everything except for the lawn. Chances are these guys went on vacation, came back to everything being dead. But as you can see, more issues in the lawn, and it just keeps going. Now on this side it's not as bad. You can see we at least have pieces of Kentucky bluegrass to work with, so we're going to need to make sure that we get in there and get a matching grass. But with the Kentucky blue, we've still got foxtail. We've also got thistle. A lot of you guys have asked about thistle. Spurge, which is huge this year. Holy crapoly, guys, look at his view. This is a buddy of mine's property, and now I might have to move in with him. I mean, just look at these beautiful Wasatch Mountains. This is crazy. Anyway, back to the lawn. I really wanted to see how far we could push Tenacity. Now this project in general, my buddy was out of the country for a couple of months, didn't realize he had some sprinkler problems, and it was a really hot summer, just kind of killed his bluegrass out. Now it's chock full. We've got some common dandelions. These are biennial dandelions. We've got spurge just about everywhere, just woven in. Now, walking through the property, you can see it's just a mess. I mean, this lawn, this is going to be a big challenge, guys. Fingers crossed, I'm going to push the products as far as they could possibly go. So let's kick this off with the lawn assessment. Let's just see what we're dealing with. We're going to check water saturation. We're going to do a thatch test and a pull test, and let's just check patterns. So far, so good. It looks like he's been watering, but I want to be sure. All right, guys, we got the Utah Special Rod's Bod clay. All right, maybe not Rod's Bod, but it sounded better to say that. But as you can see, make a pot out of it, which is awesome. We can make a mug. Mugs are good. You can make a bouncy ball. Bouncy balls are good, but hard compact clay, crap. So our thatch test results came back real clean. I dare say there's not enough thatch in here, but what I was told was they recently did a power rake. So this is pretty normal, but the majority of the front yard's probably, I don't know, 20% bluegrass and the rest is weeds. And as you can see here, this big old pile of chickweed and tertiary grasses. This is actually a ryegrass over here. And then found the stalk of morning glory. All right, guys, so overall I think we've got enough water in here. We don't have a crazy thatch layer, so we know that we're gonna get contact with the soil, whether it be liquid or seed. Now I kind of wanted to go over the process here because we've got a lot of rebuilding to do. Now we could just jump right in and put down Tenacity, but what I'm really afraid of is that we're not gonna be left with any lawn. So I wanna put Tenacity to the test. We're gonna put down grass seed that's a special blend from Barenbrug. Now I'm going to use 10% Rhizomatous tall fescue and 90% bluegrass. And the reason being is because I want it all to match. If I just shoved up a bunch of rhizomatous tall fescue because I thought it was the better thing. It may not look the same. We may have pockets that are a little uneven. So we'll introduce more rhizomatous tall fescue in the future. Now I want to make sure that when we put the grass seed down that it goes down to where it needs to go. Now I've tried to use the slit slice seeders in the past. It takes way too long and I really don't think it's necessary. As long as there's enough water in the soil, I'm just going to take the lazy man's approach here and we're going to aerate it about 3 or 4 times over. Now the reason why we can get away with this is there's not enough bluegrass in here to matter and we need as much air and oxygen going down into the soil. Now this is also going to allow me to put Essentials 101 in there, our micronutrients in there, and I'm also going to be using a starter fertilizer. It's basically an 11-11-11 at 1/4 pound per 1,000. Let's go check the products out. All right guys, from left to right. For those of you guys at home who are in a similar situation, just copy what I'm doing. We've got Tenacity, that's going to help out with all our annual and biennial weeds, pre-germination and post-germination. Now, we've got the Max Pack, the Essentials 101. Now, I'm using Propeat. I'm not going to be using Milorganite, but Milorganite is very similar. This is an 11-11-11. Basically, it's got our up, down, and all around with nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. We're going to be applying this at 2.5 to 3 pounds per 1,000. I don't want to overdo the nitrogen or the seed is not going to germinate properly. Now, I've got the Turf Sense by Barenbrug, which is just basically a Kentucky bluegrass mix that I have chosen to buy some rhizomatous tall fescue to add in with it. Now, the important things that I want to look at are the noxious weeds per pound, and this has none. And it's all pure Kentucky bluegrass, but again, I have added in some rhizomatous tall fescue into that bag per my request. Now, the Essentials 101 plays an important role. It's got sea kelp in it with L-aminos, both of which help the overall health of the plant. It's got a ton of vitamin B in it, which helps for vigorous root growth. Really important. This bag is a 25-pound bag, and we're going to pretty much use up the whole bag. I've got about 6,500 to 7,000 square feet. I don't want to overdo it, so like I said, I'm going to stick to about 1/4 pound nitrogen per 1,000. You can see these granulars are pretty big in size. There's a lot of compost to that. It's going to help hold water as well. One more step of the process done. Let's hit the seed now. The smaller seed is our Kentucky bluegrass, and the bigger pieces are our rhizomatous tall fescue. Now the Ginja is going to go pretty liberal on this grass with the grass seed. I'm going to go at 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet. Let's get her done. Now I'm using my Spyker spreader to put this stuff down, and I've got it calibrated already at 5 pounds per 1,000 square feet. For those of you at home, all you have to do is grab a scale, weigh out how many pounds you have, measure out 1,000 square feet, and just walk in a circle until it's all gone. That will kind of give you an idea of how to calibrate it, what number to go with. Luckily for me, I've got a little bit of experience. looking a little turnip face. It's part of being Reddit. What do you do? So I wanted to show you guys the purpose of the aeration. A couple of things is to provide a place for the seed to go, but it also helps out with soil to seed contact. Let me show you. All right, guys, so this is my point. You'll see here the grass seed is all over this. Now I'm praying that the birds don't come in the morning and eat this all off, so we got to get our spray down. Next step, tenacity. Now, if you want to have some really good success spraying liquids on a lawn like this, we need to make sure that our equipment is properly calibrated. So in this practice, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my Chapin 24-volt battery-powered backpack to spray 1,000 square feet. Now, I want to know two things that are happening. I want to know how long it takes me to successfully spray 1,000 square feet, and I also want to know how much liquid is coming out. So after I complete this exercise, we're going to measure liquid output in the amount of time it took me to walk 1,000 square feet. Now, assuming that I don't change any of the settings on the backpack, I should just be able to leave it alone for all three products. The only thing that's going to change is the amount of active ingredient or the amount of product that is in the backpack sprayer. There's a couple of techniques that you can use while calibrating your backpack sprayer. When spraying the concrete, what I'm going to do is map out 1,000 square feet. Now in this instance, I got pretty lucky because each one of these square slabs is 10 feet by 10 feet. Now what I'm going to do is what most technicians do. I'm going to take a wet edge and I'm going to spray the first 2 to 3 feet heavier, and then I'm going to overlap by 50% as I go into the concrete. Now this is going to allow even distribution. Now the other way that you could do it is just go get some dye for your backpack sprayer, and you could just spray up to the seams. Now the reason why I don't like to do this is because if you overlap too much, you run the risk of burning the lawn if you're using an herbicide. All right, guys, that wraps up my pace. It looks like my pace is coming in at 1 minute and 35 seconds for 500 square feet. So we're just gonna go ahead and double that. That should give us 3 minutes and 10 seconds per 1,000 square feet. So let's go ahead and see what our output is. The next step in the process is to figure out how much water is coming out of my backpack sprayer. Now, in this instance, it's taken me about 190 seconds to walk 1,000 square feet. So I'm going to do 32 seconds into the jar, and then I'm going to multiply that by 6, and that will give me my effective output rate. Pretty simple math, guys, but if you don't do it, you're going to be sorry. You got to make sure that you do this a couple of times and spray into the jar more than just once to make sure that your math is on point. So at this point, I've got 27 ounces in my jar. Now I'm going to multiply that 27 ounces times that by 6, and that will give me my effective use rate. Now mathematically that pushes us up to about 162 ounces every 3 minutes. Now it's pretty safe to say my water output is 162 ounces per 3 minutes and 10 seconds. So I'm going to use this data and make sure that I don't change the nozzle tip adjustments or settings. Otherwise that's going to screw me up and we run the risk of burning or putting too much or too little down. So here's a real quick breakdown on the math. I'm going to be traveling 1,000 square feet in 3 minutes and 10 seconds. My output on my backpack is 162 ounces per 1,000 square feet. My backpack is capable of holding 4 gallons. So I'm going to multiply the 4 gallons by 128 to tell me my overall ounces that's going to be in the backpack, which is 512. Now, in order to figure out how much product I need in my backpack, I'm going to divide the 512 ounces by 162, which gives me a whopping total of 3.16. Now, that will tell me what I need to multiply to get my per ounce. I'm going to go 3,100 square feet with my backpack is what that tells me. Okay, my mix rates today are going to be pretty simple. I'm going to be using 3 ounces per 1,000 square feet of the Essentials Plus. Considering I'm doing roughly about 3,100 square feet with the backpack sprayer, I'm going to be at about 10 ounces with the Essentials Plus. The Max Pack, I'm going to be putting that down at 3 ounces as well. So the label's a little confusing on Tenacity, What it all boils down to is they give you this awesome syringe that gets even more confusing because it says mix 2 gallons of water to 1 teaspoon of tenacity. Now if you read between the lines, that covers 2,000 square feet because you're spot spraying at 1 gallon per 1,000 square feet. I wish they would just write this stuff at half a teaspoon per 1,000 square feet. It would make my job easy. So for my backpack sprayer, I'm going to be using 1.65 teaspoons to get my 3,100 square feet. Now, with my project, I anticipate I am going to have to refill the backpack. New bottle. It's got that fresh smell. Let's see how it's creamy. Ooh, look at that, creamy. I love that. So with a syringe here, this syringe is a little annoying. It doesn't pull out very well. About 1.65 is what we need. We'll drop that into the backpack. So tenacity calls for a non-ionic surfactant. That means your dish soap will not work. You need a non-ionic surfactant. The rates are 1.5 teaspoons per 1,000 square feet. So in my backpack, I'm going to put about 4.65.
Hey, wait a minute. I need to talk to you right now. Are you a dummy? What's wrong with you? You got your license? Do you realize I do hazmat with the fire department and what you're putting on there could be dangerous chemical? Come on, man. Use your brain.
No, it's okay. All right, guys, that wraps up the chemical side of it, and that wraps up all the spray. Fingers crossed, I hope it works. I've instructed my buddy here to water 3 to 5 times during the day. Keep this seed wet for the next 2 weeks. Kentucky bluegrass runs a little slow when it grows, so that's why we put that rhizomatous fescue in, so we can at least see a glimmer of hope. We've got a small window to get the seed going. Hope we don't screw this one up. All right, guys, thanks for tuning in. This is Pest and Lawn Ginger. We'll see you on the next one. If you like what I'm doing, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe button, and keep tuning in. We're gonna do weekly updates on this.
So you're telling me after 5 or 6 different applications that this really is going to work? It looks like a mess.
I don't know, it was on the internet.